There is so much that is happening in the world right now, and it is so important that we address it, not only with ourselves, but especially with our children. I'm Dr. Jasmine Moses. I am an anti-bias, anti-racist early childhood educator. And for this work, I am your partner in progress as you navigate what is happening in the world around us. My goal is to give you tools and the confidence to raise and teach children who value differences, who stand up to injustice, and who believe that they can make a difference. So hopefully in the future, we don't even have to repeat these things. If you are not already subscribed, now is a great time because we've got work to do, and I want to keep the conversation going with you. There have been so many headlines coming out of the White House in the last few days that have been filled with such harmful rhetoric and policy changes and actions that are targeting whole entire communities, from attempts to erase identities to hateful language around even the topics of race and diversity, to even trying to take it a step further and getting rid of DEI programs. This isn't just hurtful. This is all very dangerous. It's fueling fear, it fuels division and misunderstandings that not only harm individuals, but our whole society. It is beyond devastating that we even have to remind people that everyone should have the space to be seen, valued, and loved for exactly who they are. But honestly, let's be real, too often, that's the world that we're living in. And as adults, we have the responsibility to not only teach our children about fairness, justice, and kindness, etc., but to actively model and work to create the world where everyone belongs. Our children need to see this. And this starts with the conversations that we have at home. It starts with our conversations that we are having in classrooms and in our own communities. Let's just put it out there. There is no avoiding these conversations. It's just not realistic. Children are hearing things, they are soaking things up, whether it's from other children, maybe it's from adults at their school, or maybe it's a comment at the grocery store, or something they maybe overhear at the playground. They're constantly filtering in, taking in this information, filtering it in, and trying to make sense of it. And if we are not taking the time to help our children process what they are hearing, what they are seeing, they will fill in the blanks themselves. And this can continue to lead to fear, confusion, and even harmful stereotypes. And if we are not talking about these things, our children are forced to listen to those loudest voices in the room. And we said at the beginning of this video that those voices aren't saying the right things. So we need to be able to have these conversations with children and to guide them. And I want you to also know that not talking about these topics doesn't actually protect children. It just keeps harmful systems in place. And silence actually sends the message that these issues aren't worth questioning, that they are too scary to talk about, and that we don't actually have the tools to change them. But we do. And when we talk to our children, we are teaching them that they need to not only notice injustices, but value differences and understand that they have the power to do what is right and to create change. And in order to have these conversations, we need the right tools and resources to help guide us. And when people ask me where to start, one of my first recommendations is always children's books. Books are one of the best tools that we have to help make these big, meaningful conversations feel manageable for children and us. And if you're looking for ways to bring up topics like race or gender or justice into conversations with your kids, I've got you. And today I am sharing a few of my favorite recommendations from my anti-bias children's book list. So let's get into it. First up are some books about talking about race. We have Our Skin, A First Conversation About Race. We have Black is the Rainbow Color and Skin Again by Bell Hooks. Next up, let's talk about gender and identity. Being you, a first conversation about gender, and it feels good to be yourself. Let's talk about some titles that dive into activism and getting children involved in the community. A is for activists, IntersectionAllies, we make room for all, and artivists. Because we need community to not only navigate the next 4 years, but beyond. Let's talk about some books that think about community. Together, All Our Neighbors, We Are All Connected, and We Care, a first conversation about justice.
Here are a few reminders for you while reading these books with the children around you. First and foremost, listen to their perspectives. So while you're reading, ask those open-ended questions. For example, what did you think of this part? How are you feeling about this story? And then allow space for their thoughts and feelings without having to correct them. You can also name what's happening in the story. So as you're reading, point out those key moments. Did you notice what happened here? Was that fair? What do you think? Highlight examples that you see of bias or community building that happen in the story. Make sure also to relate the story to your children's world. Maybe say something like, have you ever seen or experienced something like this? Or if they've never heard of the concept or issue, you can start small and relatable and connect it to something that they have talked about or heard of. Next, pause when needed. So if you need to, slow down if a topic or scene maybe sparks some questions or conversations or even emotions. So saying something like, let's take a moment to talk about what you're feeling or thinking. And then also thinking about what's next. So taking some time after to reflect on how the story connects to real life, and then encourage some of those small, meaningful actions. Also remember to always keep the conversation age appropriate and to work to break these concepts down for them in a way that they'll understand. And then I also want to remind you that it is okay to not know everything. Learning together is part of the process.
You can find these books at your local library, at independent bookstores, or online. And here's the thing. Many of these books are being challenged because they address topics like race, gender, identity, and justice. And that is why they need our support. So please borrow them, buy them, request them, whatever you can do to make sure that these stories stay accessible, not just for your children, but for others. And when we support these books, we are saying loud and clear that these stories matter and that we are here for the authors who tell them. And I've linked my full anti-bias book list in the notes of this video, so you can check out even more recommendations. And also don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss full future updates, tools, and resources to help you keep these important conversations going. Thank you for being here, for showing up, and for committing yourself to making this world better, not just for us, but for our children too. I'm so glad to be in community with you.
Thank you so much for watching. Let's be sure to stay connected. If you are not already following me on Instagram, you can find me there at the Anti-Bias ECE. You can also find me there at Equity in Bloom. You can also visit me at my website, www.equityinbloom.com. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, that is the best way to be able to stay connected with me through YouTube at Equity in Bloom. Thank you so much for all of your support.